Hi, I'm Justin Boyd.
And I'm Brittany Pacheco, and we are the Watchers in the Basement.
Welcome to the Watchers in the Basement, and welcome to Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because, yes, today we are discussing Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantamania, the new movie that is the 31st film overall in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is the first of Phase 5, as I mentioned before. It's the third Ant-Man film. And, and I'm going to give you the quick facts before we get to Brittany's thoughts on the movie. Um, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania was released on February 17th. Runtime of 2 hours and 5 minutes. Pretty good box office. It's already made 250 million. That's pretty strong for an Ant-Man movie. It's directed by Peyton Reed, who also directed the other two Ant-Man movies. Cast, of course, Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, Michael Douglas, Michelle Pfieffer, Kathryn Newton, Jonathan Majors, Corey Stoll, David Dastmalchain, and Bill Murray. Brittany, what are your overall thoughts of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania?
Considering, Justin, that I am not really a huge Ant-Man fan. We did talk during our MCU rewatches, the strengths and weaknesses of the first two movies. And I'd have to say that the only one at the time I really enjoyed the most was the first movie. But this movie, Quantumania, is a close second. I don't know why. It just is. And maybe because it didn't take long to get to the point of getting into the quantum realm. I'm not sure. For me, the second movie just dragged. We talked about the pacing of it, and of course, there's a lot to explain when it comes down to quantum realm explanations. But the fact that this movie just kind of jumped right into it, and we wasted hardly any time getting to the point.
Yeah.
And I liked the direction that it took. We had our kind of guesses as to what was going to happen with the if someone was going to die, what possibilities there could be, but I was okay with how it was written. And this, spoiler alert, this is actually the first Ant-Man movie that was not co-written by Paul Rudd. He also co-wrote the first two. But overall, I really didn't like. I did not didn't. I did enjoy this movie, and that's coming from a non Ant-Man fan. Shout out real quick to Yesenia in the chat. She said she liked the big bad. Of course, we're going to talk about Kang the Conqueror shortly. She's seen it twice now, Justin. She's seen it twice. She liked it more than Thor: Love and Thunder. Interesting. So, Justin, what are your thoughts on Quantumania?
So this movie is, not doing too well critically. It's got a very low Rotten Tomatoes score. It's at 48%, which anything below 60% makes it certified rotten. And it's only the second Marvel movie or MCU movie to be rotten. The only one that's lower is Eternals at 47%. And
rightfully so.
yeah, but I think that this movie is critically, I don't really understand the hate for this movie. We're in the minority. I like the movie. I think it's fine. It's to me, all three Ant-Man movies are kind of on the same level, and they're kind of mid to lower tier MCU, which is, I know mid is like a term for oh, it's not very good or whatever, but middle of the MCU or middle to low MCU is not bad. All the MCU movies I think are pretty good. Even the worst movies are not terrible movies in my opinion. But we're talking about ranking the movies. We did actually rank the first 30 movies of the MCU, so go back and check that out in our archives. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the movie. I mean, it wasn't, the thing about it, and we talked about the previous two Ant-Man movies in the last two episodes we've done on our rewatch. And the talk about this one was this was going to be a bigger Ant-Man film. It was going to be an Avengers level film. And in that respect, I think it kind of failed. It was a bigger Ant-Man movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're introducing the big bad Kang of the multiverse saga, but I don't know. On that part, I understand the criticism, but I thought the movie was fine. I enjoyed it. I saw it about a week ago, and I don't know if I'm going to see it again in theaters. I could. I don't have anything against it. I thought it was perfectly fine.
Yeah. No, I agree. And for me, you mentioned that it's a 2 hour, 5 minute movie, which is now 3 minutes longer than the second movie and then 4 minutes longer than the first movie. But the pacing of it, I feel, was good. Like it got straight to the point. Was there fluff? Not really. I won't say that there's fluff or filler type things. I will say that there were some characters that just felt a little pointless. But overall, as a whole movie, if I had to rank Ant-Man, well, we can talk about that later. But anyway, I've already kind of mentioned it. Like, this is a close second to the first movie in terms of how much I like it. So I think it's a fine movie. I don't have any problem with it. I will agree for sure. It's not on the same level as Avengers, because Avengers just kind of brought a little bit more oomph to the story and how they go about it. But in terms of it being a bigger Ant-Man movie, without a doubt, absolutely without a doubt, the biggest Ant-Man movie, period.
And just for kind of some perspective on like Rotten Tomatoes, like it's by far the lowest Ant-Man movie. Like the other movies were, the first one was 83%, which is, not bad. The second one is 87%.
What?
Now, just for a point of reference, Captain America First Avenger on Rotten Tomatoes is 80%. So that showed, like, both the first two Ant-Man movies are, critically.
Are we watching the same movies?
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, like, the critical stuff, obviously everyone's entitled to their opinion. I do think, though, with the MCU right now, and I think all superhero movies, I think people want to claim, Marvel fatigue or MCU fatigue or superhero fatigue or whatever.
Maybe.
And I think that, right now the MCU is, it's not flying high like it was with Endgame. It's down a little. We can all admit that. But, the internet and social media kind of creates this echo chamber, and people just kind of, say the same thing over and over. And this movie is definitely not the second worst movie in the MCU, in my opinion. I mean, that's so ridiculous. Not. But anyway, let's get into, we'll mix in some criticism, because there's criticisms that are valid. We'll mix in criticism that are likes. Let's talk about the cast, though, because I think that's something that I think a lot of people, as far as, something that everyone seemed to like, unanimous, was the addition of Kang, Jonathan Majors as Kang the Conqueror.
Man.
Yeah, what did you think about how he played? And we won't talk about later in the movie. How do you think he portrayed Kang the Conqueror throughout the movie?
Man, it's masterful. Like, Jonathan Majors, mind you, this guy is like 5 months younger than me. And I feel so unaccomplished in my life right now. But he went to school for all of this, right? Like he knows the craft. And I was talking about this with John, about how Jonathan Majors was in Lovecraft Country, which I have not seen and want to go back to watch and just see how he performed in that show. But for being Kang the Conqueror, being the new big bad, and listen, we got the big bad like right off the bat, really. I mean, we really got him in Loki, but when we're talking like MCU movie, this is it. We didn't have that development of getting Thanos eventually from the Infinity Saga. We're here and we're ready to go. And for being such a villain, because Kang is a villain for sure. And I won't even go as far to say he thinks he's a hero in his own story. And maybe he is. Dude is straight up psychotic and a true villain, but how he presents himself, his posture, his charisma, his just how he carries himself was very, very intimidating. And I absolutely loved his performance, because when you felt his pain, you felt his pain. And when he was pissed, you knew he was pissed. And it was just, like Yesenia says here in the chat, he can command a room. Like, that man knows how to hold your attention. And no, he absolutely was not a joke villain at all. This is someone, he's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I think that, you're right. And once again, they got the casting right with Jonathan Majors as Kang. And like, he is definitely the big bad of this this saga. But he's not gonna, as you can tell from this movie, he's not gonna be just like Thanos. It's not a carbon copy situation. It's very different, as far as like, he's not gonna be he's probably not gonna be as powerful as Thanos in a sense of obviously with this movie. Well, let me explain. So with this movie, one of the criticisms of this movie, and okay, we're spoiling the movie now, is that Kang the Conqueror, he is killed. I use air quotation marks for that. And it seems like Ant-Man and the Wasp and Cassie and everybody kind of dispatches of him pretty quickly with the help of ants. There's a lot of ants, and we'll talk about that also. Yep. They kind of dispatch him kind of quickly, and it's like, you feel like with this movie, like like one of the criticisms is, he was defeated so easily, and he was defeated in Loki season 1, or He Who Remains was defeated, and it's like, how can this guy be the big bad if his first 2 appearances he's taken L's? And I would say that if you kind of follow in the story though, like in Loki, he tells Sylvie, "Look, if you kill me, it's only going to make this worse," right? She does it, right?
Yeah.
Sort of the same thing in this movie where, now you have all these, the Kang dynasty, you have, who knows how many versions of variants or whatever Kang are now, targeting the Avengers. And so it's like, and also, I mean, let's be real. Like, if you think this is the last we've seen of Kang the Conqueror, I'm pretty sure we're going to see Kang the Conqueror in the Kang Dynasty movie, which is an Avengers film. So,
oh yeah,
yeah,
let's go. I'm here for it.
Yeah.
I mean, to kind of get ahead, y'all. Spoiler: after the post credit, there is a title that says Kang will return.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, so okay, we're gonna bounce all around, but let's talk about so there was a mid-credit scene with this movie, and there was also a post-credit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the mid-credit first.
Sure.
The mid-credit scene, you have, as I said a second ago, there's numerous variants of Kang, and they meet to discuss the death of the Conqueror.
My God, are there variants?
And they're having and there's 3 main ones that they focus on.
Mm-hmm.
There is a character named Pharaoh Ramatut. There is apparently a futuristic version of Kang, and the one in purple,
mm-hmm.
who kind of has like a cyborg kind of headpiece. And then there's another one called Immortus.
Mm-hmm.
And these 3 Kangs have they're basically in charge of the Kang dynasty, if you will. And they talk about how he was killed or whatever. And, let's be honest, like he's going to be back. Like,
he's going to be back. If there's one rule that we've learned from the MCU is that if you don't actually see them die on screen, like how we did with Loki at the beginning of
Infinity War,
mm-hmm. then you can't really say that they're dead. Spoiler, Wanda. I'm just saying, like, in multiverse, she's not dead. Come on, she's not. We didn't see her actually die. We saw Loki die, but we got Loki back, so it's fine. But anyway, no, for sure, there's no way that you're going to introduce this variant of Kang the Conqueror and not bring him back. Like, you just can't do that, nor you shouldn't do that, actually. So but that scene was cool because it goes to show, pretty much echoing what He Who Remains said to Loki and Sylvie when she killed him, basically unleashing the awful. And obviously that created the different time variants. And then now with Kang the Conqueror from this movie, he basically told Ant-Man, this isn't over. Like, you're going to unleash the worst.
Right.
If you don't do what I say. So there's a theme. And the reason for that, obviously, is because it could be an infinity amount of Kangs.
Yeah.
And that's a terrifying thought. So Thanos who?
Yeah, I mean, Kang was, the Conqueror was exiled from these other Kangs. So he
Yep.
was kind of the worst of the bunch. That's why he was sent away. And, once again, the way he dies, I think we're going to, he's basically just being sent away, and we're definitely going to see that character back again.
Yeah.
Or that
For sure.
version. But, and the one criticism I have about the mid-credit scene, I did think that the three main Kangs that they focused on, I thought their costumes looked kind of cheap. I
Well,
don't know the look of it,
in
and maybe
fairness,
yeah, maybe it's
they
just
had a
like,
lot of Kangs to dress. Okay.
no, I know, but I'm talking about the main three, right? The
Yeah.
Ramatut,
I know.
Mortis, the future one. I don't know. It looked it looked like substandard for Marvel, I thought.
I'll have to take your word for it. It wasn't something I was really dwelling on in terms of costumes. It was more like, oh my God, like how many Kang variants are filling this stadium, it looks like, and they're all excited to see the main ones like on the floor. It's almost like Gladiator, kind of like
Yeah.
you have.
No, that part was great. I'm talking
No,
about
that
just
was cool. It's just
yeah.
like I'm just saying. I think they're just. I was more consumed with seeing just how many Kangs there are as opposed to like what they're wearing. But I'm sure. I'm sure you're right. So quick shout out to Nick and Claire, Walking with the Woods. They're here in the chat joining us all the way from the UK. Appreciate you staying up late to be with us to talk about Quantamania.
Yeah, we do appreciate that. So let's skip to the post credit where we see another variant of Kang. And this looks like this was like basically a scene from Loki season 2.
Yeah.
It shows Loki and Mobius, and they're at kind of like almost like the World's Fair kind of deal, like almost like what we saw with Howard Stark in First Avenger.
Mm-hmm.
And we meet this other King variant named Victor Timely.
Yep.
So Brittany, I know you I mean, I was a fan of Loki also, but of the series, you were really into the Loki series. What did you think about this post credit?
I think it was cool. It was cool to see how you obviously are going to have to tie in Loki somehow because this was basically our first introduction to who we now know is to be Kang. Yeah. And we know that at the end of Loki, he was in a world or in a timeline where Mobius existed, but Mobius didn't know who Loki was. And Loki looks out into his surroundings and see that there's, this massive statue of Kang the Conqueror. So Loki knows and understands the severity and how powerful Kang is, right? And so obviously with this and seeing the sheer look of terror on Loki's face, Loki who's the god of mischief and has done so many bad things on his own, to be terrified of another being, godlike being, or I'm not quite sure how you label Kang. It's great. It's great to see that because you know that Loki can be bested, but you look at this Victor Timely and think, oh, this guy's like whatever. He's just a smarty pants and he's presenting whatever he's presenting about time. And Mobius is like, this guy, like, are you kidding me? And Loki's like, yeah, like don't let looks fool you.
Yeah, I like how having a post credit, which teases to a show, just kind of makes the shows feel more important also. And obviously Loki was like one of their better ones along with WandaVision, but I did like that choice. And I'm very interested to see what happens. And it seems like Jonathan Majors is going to be a big time character in season 2. And
without a doubt,
I feel like he'll be in probably most of the episodes.
I hope so.
And as far as we know, season 2 is still on track to come out in 2023, along with Secret Invasion. I think all the other shows might have been pushed to 2024 or later, but we're going to get Secret Invasion coming up first, and then we're going to get Loki season 2 probably in the fall, I would guess.
Okay.
So
it's very exciting either way. I mean, I liked how they teased it to get you excited, as Yesenia said, for season 2 of Loki. So yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here.
Yeah. So getting to other members of the cast, let's talk about Michelle Pfieffer in this movie. She has a much bigger role as Janet Van Dyne. the movie opens and we see the 30 years that she was trapped in the quantum realm.
Mhm.
The movie opens and she encounters Kang, right?
Yes.
And I thought this opening scene was, what do you think? Maybe 5 minutes or so. But you see her kind of establish a friendship with Kang. They're going to help each other. And then obviously she sees what he actually is and she doesn't want any part of it. I feel like I know you said before that you liked how quickly we got into the quantum realm with the characters. I feel
Mhm.
like this could have been we could have had more of this scene. Like I feel like this could have been a bigger part of the movie, and I think that might have appealed more to the people who didn't like the film because I feel like
I think you're kind of fusing two things together though, because when we do open with Janet Van Dyne is when Kang does crash land into
right.
the area and she goes and investigate and you see her fighting off these like quantum creatures and
Mm.
reaches him and he basically says like what is its place kind of thing and then it breaks to Scott Lang. It's not until later on that we see when she's telling the story about Kang to Hank
Oh yeah,
and
that's true.
Hope that we get that kind of 5-10 minute maybe explanation about who Kang is and he's a scientist. He whatever excuse he gave to her about
Mhm.
uh, ending up where he ended up and how she helped him and this is why she's kind of scared of him because she left the quantum realm and now she's back in the quantum realm and he wants to find her. So yeah, I think that's the big difference is that yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. I kind of combine those things. That's fair. What did you think about Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie?
Yo, like she was in her element. Okay, this is like the Michelle Pfeiffer uh, earliest of movies that I can recall her being in, and it's going to be Batman Returns as Catwoman. I mean, it's one of my favorite movies. We did a review of that movie for our holiday rewatch. Go check it out, y'all, in case you haven't. But for Michelle, like to just kind of give that presence of being a powerful woman, and she's had to fight to stay alive in the quantum realm. Obviously, she didn't know how to get out, and no one knew how to get her. So she had to adapt. She had to uh, be able to fight when she needed to, and to showcase that for someone who appears to be older, of course, in the quantum realm. Which I want to put a pin in that. Come back to that later because I just want to get your opinion and then our viewers and listeners' opinion about this too. But to see her kind of like in attack mode was really great for me. I was just in my chair and I'm like, "Yay, she's like a badass." And I don't know,
Mhm.
it just makes me happy to see Michelle Pfeiffer in that mode.
Yeah, she had a really big role in this movie, larger than I expected. And honestly, Hope or Janet Van Dyne was the original Wasp, and in
Yes,
this movie, I mean, she got more screen time than the actual Wasp, than the current Wasp, I think. So,
she did.
and she was more pivotal to the story than Evangeline Lilly's Hope Van Dyne. So,
And I was actually kind of okay with that because to me it would make more sense to give more screen time to someone who spent 30 years in the quantum realm. Not to take away from Evangeline Lilly and her character as the Wasp, but to go back into a quantum realm and to be able to serve as like a guide for those who haven't been there. It only just made sense. And again, Michelle Pfeiffer kind of commanding a room in her own right was great for me. And I'm not mad about that decision. I'm really honestly not. I think she had a lot of great one-liners and same goes with Michael Douglas as Hank Pym and I, I love seeing their chemistry together on screen. It was a lot of fun to watch. And Nick in the chat says he's writing a quiz question about Michelle Pfeiffer, I guess, as Janet Van Dyne. And he says ninja watching, by the way, as we haven't seen the movie yet. Nick, be prepared for spoilers. Sorry, not sorry.
so talking about another member of the cast, another new addition to this cast is Kathryn Newton. She becomes the third actress to play Cassie Lane. She's playing a a teenage version of the character of Scott's daughter.
Mhm.
What did you think about Kathryn Newton's portrayal of the character in this movie?
I thought she was actually a good fit
Yeah,
with her casting. I don't know her prior to this
neither.
particular role. She, I feel, mirrors Scott Lang's character in many ways, but also is a woman of her own convictions. And she, when we are first introduced to her, she's being bailed out of jail, and because she was at a peaceful protest or something along those lines, and that probably wasn't the reason. The reason that she was in jail is because she shrunk a police car using pim particles, as you do, which I thought was hilarious. But Cassie's character, I think, was great because she wanted to do good in the world and wanted to utilize the technology that her quote grandpa Pim, or grandpa Hank, which I love, she referred to him as, she wanted to do more than just be an Avenger and write a book about it, which was a shot at her dad, which I was like, ow, like, ow, you know? Uh, but I thought Kathryn Newton was great. She performed well. What about
Yeah,
you?
the no, I thought she was good. I liked her suit. She had this
Mhm.
purple suit. I think it's good that we now have like the Ant-Man family. We have like, I mean, five people that can utilize the PEM particles and
What does
it
she
can,
refer to that though? I mean, we've got Ant-Man, we've got the Wasp.
there
What
are
does Cassie refer to
there's
as?
two character names. Like one is Stature, and then there's another one, but she wasn't referred to anything in this movie. So I
No,
guess they
she
haven't
wasn't.
determined. Yeah,
Okay,
they
that's
haven't
fine.
determined which character she's going to be.
That's fine. I
But
mean, it was fun to see her kind of struggling with the suit, much like how her dad did in the first movie, and uh, she also goes big. Like she becomes giant at one point, and there's like this really great moment towards the end of the movie where she's giant in the suit and Scott's giant in the suit, and they run to each other and they hug and they're like, "Wow, this is so weird. You're so
yeah,
big." I'm like, "You guys are silly." It was just funny.
yeah, no, I thought she was a nice addition to the cast. I like you. I'm not familiar with her. I don't think I've ever seen her anything else, or if I have, I
Mm-mm.
didn't realize it was her. But
Right.
you talked about how she she kind of is like a symbol of good in this movie, even though she kind of has like similar delinquent tendencies as her dad. And she actually, one of my favorite characters in the movie is Modoc. We have Modoc, who we learn is basically the character from the first movie. The
Yellow
name,
Jacket.
yeah, Yellow Jacket, but I'm blanking on the Darren
Darren.
Cross. Yeah, so Darren
Yep.
Cross. He after what happened in the events of Ant-Man 1, he ends up in the quantum realm and he becomes MODOK, which stands for mechanized organism designed only for killing. And
My God, like his look was ridiculous to me. And I remember being on Twitter after I finally saw the movie because I did not want any spoilers whatsoever. There was a comparison of Modoc to a character from one of the Spy Kids movies where the
yeah,
face was just like extremely stretched out. And I'm just like, yeah, this is terrifying regardless. I
yeah,
mean,
he's
it just
got
looks so weird.
big head, small arms, small legs. We even saw some MODOK butt.
We
So
did see Modoc, but
yeah, that was a funny moment.
that was so
Um,
strange.
but in the movie, he's trapped in the quantum realm, and he ends up becoming kind of like a henchman for Kang, the Conqueror.
Yeah, they refer to him as the Hunter.
Right.
Yeah.
And I thought he brought a lot of the comedy to the movie, because every time he encounters Scott, Scott wants to refer to him as Darren because that's what he knew him as,
Yeah.
and he will only answer to Modoc, and that was a funny bit throughout the movie,
It
and
was.
obviously Modoc's demise was actually very funny. Uh,
Mhm.
Cassie convinces him to turn against Kang, and she's like, "Don't be a dick," and that becomes like the motto. And as he dies, this is probably my favorite part of the whole movie. again, spoilers for everybody, but
Mhm.
as he's dying, the Ant-Man family is like all gathered around him. And he looks up at him. He's like, at least I died an Avenger. And they're all like looking around, and
Like,
Scott Lang's like, yep, you're in. You're in.
but even
Like,
before that, MODOK like reaches his hand out to Scott's face
yeah.
and kind of like strokes his face. And he's like, I've always thought of you as a brother. And Scott's like, what?
Right.
Like you, like seriously, you tried to kill me like years ago
Yeah.
in my daughter's bedroom when she was 6. Like, come on.
Yeah.
He did bring in a lot of comedic relief in this movie, which was silly. It was just overall very strange to have to look at him on screen.
Yeah, it was a very kind of silly, but I think it was like the right way to utilize MODOK, because MODOK is a character that, I mean, I'm not super familiar with, but I did watch the Hulu series starring Patton Oswalt that came out a year or so ago. I really liked the series.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those characters where it's a comic character that it's hard to take him seriously when you see him.
Yeah.
And so I think they did the right thing by playing into how ridiculous and how silly he looks, and to make him kind of a joke, maybe a one-off character in the MCU, I think is smart. Yeah. Now, granted, who knows what we're going to see later on? We might see a different variant of MODOK, a different version. Who knows what's going to happen, like in Avengers: Secret Wars, if we're going to see a new MODOK emerge. But I thought they really handled the character very well in how they utilized him in this movie.
Yeah, it would make sense to place him in the quantum realm, because that's how we saw Darren's demise in the first movie, was when Scott imploded him basically, and you see Yellow Jacket kind of like shrink into himself and then just disappear. And obviously we know he ended up in the quantum realm, but it disfigured him, and that's why he looks the way that he looks, giant head, small limbs. Pardon me. And it made sense, because with seeing the different creatures and the people in the quantum realm, it's one of the very few movies where I did not feel I needed an explanation as to how and why these creatures and people were there. Like, we got that explanation that the quantum realm is just basically a universe that lives outside of our universe, or like kind of like within.
Yeah, it's like a micro universe. Like,
yeah, like
right.
we all kind of live in the same kind of universe, but like it's its own micro universe, like what you said. So, but again, like, to see everything within that quantum realm, I didn't need an explanation as to like why things look the way that they look and how did people get there. It's fine. Like, I was totally okay with it. So character choices of just how they look, like that broccoli head. Oh my god, Justin, when I saw that broccoli head, I started laughing at myself, because if y'all have been watching our The Last of Us pod reviews, I basically been calling what we now know to be clickers and bloaters broccoli face motherfuckers, because that's just what they look like to me. And when I saw that broccoli head, I was like, no, they did not. Like,
yeah, I knew you were gonna. When I saw it, I was like, I know you're gonna enjoy that part. Yeah,
yeah, that was pretty funny. But to kind of talk a little bit quickly about the quantum realm and these other characters, how they communicate was interesting. Because it sounds like a foreign or an alien type language, and then when Scott and Cassie are taken by these beings, they're forced to drink like this ooze from, I don't know, this kind of blob type character, and then all of a sudden they're able to understand like everything that's being spoken inside the quantum realm. So I'm like, okay, this is weird, but again, don't need that explanation. It is what it is. It's fine.
Yeah, the blob character who is obsessed with holes because he doesn't have any, which I thought was a very weird part of the movie.
So strange.
Yeah,
it was very adult.
Character is voiced by David Dastmalchain, who, of course, is one of the ex-con guys. Who is not the we don't see Luis, we don't see Ti, we don't see which Ti played Dave. Yeah, we don't see Kurt. I felt like that was something that was missing from this movie. Like, 100%. And I realized like you weren't going to see them in the quantum realm, but there are other parts of the movie, like when Scott is having his like reading of his book, at the bookstore, like you could have seen, like Luis could have been reading it, right? That would have been hilarious. Or he's telling the story, or
Yeah, because you
you
hear
could have
Scott
seen them.
narrating
Right,
everything, and it could have been done by Luis in the Luis fashion of
right,
the inner monologue of
right.
everyone. Yeah, no, I
Yeah, I
agree.
feel like
It
they
was a
were
big
missed.
disappointment.
Yeah, and Randall Park is like Jimmy Woo is in this movie for like a second, like one cameo, which
Yeah, just one cameo.
I mean, not I'm not saying he needs to be in the movie, the whole movie, but that was kind of weird how like he was in it, but I mean, it's literally a cameo. He doesn't even
But
say anything, right?
but that's picking up from the end of Ant-Man 2
Right,
when
right,
he says to Scott after they take off the ankle bracelet, like, "I'll be seeing you." And Scott's like, "Why did you say that? Like, it sounded
right.
like we're gonna get like dinner or something together." And that it's just picking up from that,
Yeah,
which was funny. It was silly, but yeah, not having Michael Pena and Ti in the movie, you kind of just miss a little bit of something. And I think I don't know if it was Peyton who said in an interview is that they basically wanted to focus on the family, being the Ant-Man family, if you will, and just getting them into the quantum realm like as fast as possible, and having those extra characters like it wasn't necessary. But I agree, even if we just had like the narration of things being told
yeah,
from Luis's like way of speaking, it would have been great. It honestly would have been great. Real quick, Justin, a quick shout out to Mel from Geeking Out with Melly Mel. She says, "Hey,
yeah. Great to have
thanks
you.
for being here."
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So, you were talking about the quantum realm, and we talked about Veb, and there's a bunch of the native characters, which that part of this made this movie like more sci-fi than most MCU movies, and I felt like it felt kind of Star Warsy, like
Yes,
right, like I
yes,
mean they even had a cantina scene, which is like obviously a Star
yes.
Wars staple, and it makes sense because Peyton Reed directed 2 episodes of The Mandalorian. In fact, he actually directed the last episode that we saw The Mandalorian.
Oh
He
my God, he
directed the Luke
did.
Skywalker return episode,
I forgot about that. You're
but he
right.
also
He
did that
did.
episode where there were like spiders, those giant spiders. Remember that one?
Mm,
It's
mhm.
I think it's like early
They're
in
like the
season
ice,
2.
like the
Yeah.
ice
Yeah.
spiders, and they had the frog with the tadpole type, the
Yeah.
eggs. Or yeah, I know
Right.
which episode you're talking about.
Yeah, so that's why it kinda had a Star Wars feel, and
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now.
yeah, and I don't know, I didn't really like that part of it, honestly. Like, I mean
Well, we also know how you feel about Star Wars these days,
yeah,
so.
I've definitely turned against, turned to the dark side, I guess, against Star Wars, but,
Bum, bum, bum,
yeah,
bum, ba-dum.
um, but yeah, that's one of the criticisms of the movie, I wanna balance it because I do like this movie, but,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll play devil's advocate, is the movie okay, there's a ton of CGI, obviously, because you're in a made up world or whatever.
Sure.
But there is a point where, and this has been one of my criticisms for Star Wars, especially on Disney Plus, is that the
The
shows
volume.
they end up looking like people like dressed in Star Wars uniforms, cosplaying as Star Wars characters on sound stages. Now, I
Mhm.
don't think this movie looks that bad,
No.
but I do think that like there's a certain point of these movies where it's so much CGI and it's so much like weird colors that you just like your eyes just kind of glaze over and you're like, okay, like whatever,
Mhm.
like I don't care anymore. But
I
I
think
do,
I think for the purpose of the like utilizing the volume, which is like this
yeah.
big 360 sort of environment
The
that
screens, right? Yeah, right. LED
exactly
screens, yeah.
screens, the LED screens, it pays off when you're making like a sci-fi type movie because otherwise it kind of is. Well, no, they used it for House of the Dragon with.
Well, they used it in the Batman. Like, and I think in
Oh, that's right, they did. Yeah.
They may have used it the best. And I'm not saying the Batman was the best movie ever made. I liked it a lot,
Mhm.
but they used it really well in the Batman. And the Batman was supposed to be kind of in a obviously a somewhat realistic version of Gotham City.
Mm.
As grounded as I guess you could possibly be with a superhero. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's fair. But I can see your point about overutilizing the volume, and there's something that when you have a practical scene, like a practical set rather, and people are able to interact with the structures, the foliage, the props that are real and intact,
mhm.
along with the backdrops, it kind of makes you really feel more immersed versus
Yeah.
just like looking at its screens. It's like, okay, well, like that's cool because obviously it fills like the room a lot more. But yeah, like I can see where it may be lost um, on someone, such as yourself as a fan of the MCU. But I want to mention real quick, Justin, about a couple of other characters that we meet in the quantum realm. And I can't think of his character name off the top of my head, but the telepath. The telepath guy,
Quaz, I believe.
Quaz. Okay.
Yeah.
While I liked him, I also liked how he brought in that kind of sort of comedic relief when he's with Veb and they're talking about like the holes. And just like it's kind of weird conversation. And you can see his forehead would light up when he's reading Scott's mind and things like that. That was funny. But the character, like, otherwise didn't really serve a purpose.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe one event towards the end of the movie where the locals of Quantum Realm kind of start like this rebellion against Kang. And so they corner a guard, if you will. It's one of those dudes that wears the helmet and it's blue light up face. And he asks for the bridge code, and the guard says, "I'll die before I give it to you." Telepath like reads his mind, and then he gives off the code, and then the guard's like, "Damn." And so like that's the only purpose he really served. Like outside of that, like comedic relief, fine, but I don't know. He just
I mean, when he encountered,
they could have found a different way, and he wasn't really needed.
When the rebels of this, the quantum realm, whenever they find Cassie and Scott, there is a funny part where he reads their minds and he's like, they know nothing. Like literally they know nothing. Like, because the rebels don't believe him. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. And similar to that is this character, her name is Gentora, it's played by Kathy O'Brien, and she's kind of like the leader of these freedom fighters. And that character looks like a Star Wars character. You know what I mean? Like not like was a very Star Warsy character in this world. And just to kind of put a button on what I was saying a second ago, to me, I think when people complain about CGI and the look of everything, that's because they don't like the story. Because if you like the story, there's a suspension of disbelief, right? You'll just go along with it. But when you don't like the story, I think that's when you get criticisms of like, oh, the CGI looks bad or whatever. And so like my criticism with like Obi-Wan was I thought the story was terrible. And like because the story lost me and wasn't fun and I hated it, it made me pick apart everything else, which also I think was equally bad, right?
Fair.
So the critics who are picking apart the CGI in this movie, they're basically just saying in another way, I don't like the story, which I thought the story was fine. I had no problem with the story.
It's not perfect, but it didn't fall apart.
No, that's something else. Like a lot of people are grading like Marvel. Phase 3 Marvel was spectacular. Like if you go back and look at the Phase 3 films, it was banger after banger. It was just great stuff. But before that, Phase 1 and 2 were like, okay, kind of cool. Like they set up characters that we all love, Iron Man and Captain America and Thor and those kind of characters. We all love them now. We didn't all love them then. I mean, these were kind of B-level Marvel characters before the movies. So people are looking back on Phase 1 and 2 and they're thinking, oh, it was so awesome. And it really wasn't. Phase 3 was awesome. And so Phase 4 was like another like rebuilding phase. And you're expanding the universe also with all these new characters. Yeah. And it was kind of hit or miss for some people. And people, like I said, usually when it's something's hit or miss, it's more miss from people. People are more negative than they are positive.
Sure.
And, this movie, I mean, it's not the best, but I mean, it's far from like the worst. And
sure,
if you don't like these kind of movies, cool. But tell me what kind of movies you do like that you think are good, because I've been watching a lot of other movies lately and they're not
if you
good.
Say it's Star Wars sequels,
no,
go away.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because those movies are trash, with the exception of maybe Force Awakens. Maybe.
Well, yeah, because
I'll give that one a pass.
Force Awakens was like a greatest hits, remix of
of the original story
of A New Hope. Yeah.
Yeah,
let's just do it again. Yeah. So
I agree.
But yeah.
We digress.
Well, I think people know how we feel about some certain Star Wars movies.
A little bit.
But
no,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna keep talking about the characters that we meet in the quantum realm with Bill Murray's character.
Bill Murray. That's where I was going to go next. Yeah.
Great. Because again, this is another character I felt served no purpose whatsoever. Sorry.
And
I love Bill Murray. Don't get me wrong. I was
Did-
just like,
did he die or did he not die? What do you think?
don't really care.
I don't think we're gonna see him ever again anyway. It doesn't
Probably
matter.
not. I think this is just like a one-off for him. Like
Right.
someone who's always wanted to be in an MCU film, and the opportunity was presented and he took it, and however minor character he was. Again, another comedic relief sort of character, because you figured that while Janet was in the quantum realm for all those years, that she's like, I had needs.
Right.
He fulfilled those needs.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So Bill Murray plays a character called Lord Krylar. And Krylar was someone that Janet not only hooked up with in the quantum realm, but obviously was like befriended because he was also a part of like the rebels who were fighting against Kang. But in the time since Janet left the quantum realm and returned back to San Fran with the Ant-Man family, Krylar switched sides and was like, there's no beating this Kang guy. Might as well, if you can't beat him, join him. And so he joined Kang.
Yeah.
And so whenever, and even him, like, he has, Janet and Hope and Hank for like this like extravagant kind of dinner or whatever. Even that, when he turns against them, that felt kind of like a Star Wars move. That felt like a Lando Calrissian,
yeah.
Empire Strikes Back. So I mean,
100%.
not on the same level, not nearly as good, but it felt like that kind of deal where you knew, like, you could tell he was going to be a villain, even though he was someone that Janet knew and kind of thought.
I honestly thought he was going to have a bigger role than what
I did too.
He was given. Like, you feature someone like Bill Murray in a trailer, you kind of can't help but think, oh, he's going to be in this movie.
Yeah.
Not at all. He had like 10 minutes at best.
Maybe.
But yeah, like out again, it's one of these things where his role could have been eliminated entirely. The Pym Van Dyne family could have been discovered and brought to Kang in a completely different way. Again, it's like, does this character move the story along or not? And I honestly didn't feel it did. I mean, he was just kind of like there.
Yeah, no,
that's just my personal opinion about it.
And he was briefly shown in the trailer, so I guess that makes like, I mean, in fact, I'm not even sure if he was shown in every trailer. Maybe just one of the teasers. I think he was shown.
He was in the one that we reviewed.
Okay,
so
that was the final trailer.
Yeah, I do recall that, but yeah, it was just kind of a silly character, and he just really didn't serve much purpose, in my opinion. But yeah, I have questions more about Janet, but we'll continue.
Okay. So speaking of the trailer, here's a criticism I have of the movie. I thought the trailer, and this happens with trailers, I thought the trailer was a little misleading when it got to Scott's motivation for working with Kang, right? Because the way the trailer was pitched, and I think this might have been a better story, was that Scott was saying he lost all this time with Cassie.
Exactly.
And it was like, so in the movie, Scott ends up doing what Kang wants to do because Kang says he's going to kill Cassie, which, okay, valid reason for helping Kang or being forced to help him, right? Yep. But in the trailer, it makes it sound, because Kang tells him, like, you're a man who's lost a lot of time. I can help with that. It makes it sound like he's going to get back the time he lost from the blip, or maybe even more than that. And that was not in this movie at all. That was not.
Yeah.
And I thought that would have been an interesting, because I thought also with something else that was spoiled in the trailer was the part where, Ant-Man and Kang are fighting, and Ant-Man says, Kang says, you can't win. And Ant-Man's like, I don't have to win. We both just have to lose. By him saying that, and for him like fighting to get more time with Cassie, I thought we were going to see Ant-Man die, or I thought we were going to see someone die besides the Conqueror being killed.
Exactly.
So I do think that the criticism that this movie doesn't have a lot of stakes, I think that's fair. What say you, Brittany?
I'd say I absolutely would have to agree. I feel like it would have been a better story or better motivation for Scott to fall under Kang's commands because he wants back that time that he lost being in the quantum realm for those 5 years. And but at the same time, I kind of feel like Scott wouldn't have done that at all.
Yeah.
Truly, like if he were to get the device in order to power Kang's ship and everything else that he's built around that ship so he can escape his exile, I feel like Scott would have just misdirection. He did the whole magic thing, and that would have kind of just been his whole misdirection of, I'm going to do the thing, but I'm really not going to do it because I'm just going to destroy this device. It's going to help you leave this quantum realm. But it would have made for a better story, I feel, if it was Scott being able to go back in time and get those years back with Cassie. But then that opens up this whole other can of like other problems. So yeah, I can see how the trailer was a little bit misleading, because we did talk about this in our trailer reaction or trailer review video as well. And we had our suspicions as to who may die in this movie. And I was surprised with that not happening at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like, we haven't talked about Ant-Man a ton, even though this is an Ant-Man movie. But I mean, Paul Rudd was great as always. He's super funny. He's a charming person. Like whatever he plays in any movie, like you end up liking that character. So he was great as Ant-Man in this movie once again.
Sure.
But I did feel like, as I mentioned several times, Peyton Reed talked about how he wanted this movie to have some Avengers like big time feel. And it got like halfway there. You know what I mean? Like it kind of like you're introducing the character that the Avengers are going to have to take down, or the dynasty of Kangs that the Avengers are going to have to face. But this was not an Avengers level movie. Civil War is an Avengers movie basically, even though it's
100%.
the Captain America movie. You know what I'm saying? Like it did not get close to Captain America Civil War. Not that a lot could, but.
And do you think it lacks being an Avengers movie because of the very fact that it doesn't have
other Avengers?
They're Avengers. I mean, it's just Scott Lang. I mean, there's talk of the other Avengers. Of course, there's mention of Thor. Kang has asked if he's killed Scott before. He's like, well, you're not the one that carries the hammer. So in another timeline, Kang has killed, or at least has met Thor.
Right.
And there's another reference later on about Kang having gone up against the Avengers and what have you. So, I mean, there's talk, but like talk doesn't deliver the same kind of action and entertainment as an Avengers movie does. So yeah, it fell a little short from there, but considering this is just one Avenger taking on a big bad, it's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It's pretty good. I mean, he had the help from Hope and the rest of the fam, of course. Can I just say, Justin, because I messaged you about this after I saw the movie. There's dealing with ants, of course. We see at the beginning of the movie with Hank Pym, he's got these ants who have pretty much evolved. They're smart. They're building their own tech. They're just doing all these incredible things. And they too get sucked into the quantum realm, but they get separated from the Ant-Man family. Well, eventually Hank, through his like earpiece, he's able to get a signal and kind of round them all out. And in the finale battle, if you will, all these ants come together to take out Kang, right? And Michael Douglas, my God, did he have to come in walking with all that swagger? And the answer, yes, he motherfucking did. I was sitting there, I'm like, Jesus, like this man right here, he's how old? He's like 70, 80 something years old. This man's old as shit. And he comes in like just a badass with ants. Come on, y'all. That was a great moment for me. Just saying. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I thought it's cool. I mean, again, that's something that people are also critical of, saying like, like Kang the Conqueror was defeated by ants, and it's like, well, there were thousands of them, and they were,
these ants are smart,
supersized, and the original Ant-Man is leading the way, and so I feel like I
That's
feel like
cool.
this movie, and I've heard other people say this, and I agree with this. This movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, it was really more about the original versions of those. I mean, well, okay, not more about, but like the original versions played really a pivotal role in this movie. Whereas, I mean, yeah, Hank was pretty important in the first movie,
Of course.
kind of sidelined in the second one. I don't
Yes.
remember exactly what he did in the second one. Uh,
He argued a lot.
we just watched it last week. I like the movie fine, but it's
Yeah.
not the most memorable film ever.
Oh,
But
not even a week's
you know,
time.
both Hank and Janet were able to
Hmm.
shine in this movie, and
For sure.
I did enjoy that. But we also thought that maybe one of them or both of them might have died, or both of them might have been stuck in the quantum realm. Like that
Yeah.
could have happened too.
And to kind of talk now on that, since we're talking about the original Ant-Man and the Wasp, if you will, with Janet, to me it would have seemed more appropriate for her to die in the movie. Not that I wanted her to,
Right.
but if that was the route that was going to be taken, it would have seemed very poetic for her character to die in the quantum realm, because she spent all those years there. Again, I still want to talk about that in a moment, but I wanted to ask you, Justin, and everyone else who's watching and listening, what is the actual beef with everyone in the quantum realm and Janet? Was it the fact that she helped Kang unknowingly, or the fact that she fought all those years against him and then left?
I think it's that she left them.
Okay.
I think she was on their side and then she, left.
She bailed.
And because she left, it enraged Kang even more.
And probably was therefore able to conquer
Right.
more so
Right.
than
Right.
prior.
I
Okay.
think I think that's what it was.
Because I mean, I can see it both ways, truly, of Kang being the conqueror that he is, and being the persuasive individual that he is, to spin it on her, to say, well, she helped me achieve everything that I have today. So really, you should be mad at her, and therefore you should turn her into me and what have you. But if it's more because the people are mad at her because she was helping protect them from Kang and she bailed, that makes sense. I mean, to me, either makes sense truly, but I didn't get a clear, definitive answer as to why.
Yeah, it's something, now it's been almost a week since I saw it, and I've tried to remember as best I can, and I've looked up stuff, but I don't exactly remember. But I do think it's because she got out of there, and then that just, led to him becoming the conqueror.
Yeah. And to talk again more on the quantum realm, since the second movie, we've been told that Janet Van Dyne was missing for 30 years, right? She's been in the quantum realm for 30 years. But if we go back to talking about Scott being in the quantum realm during the end of Ant-Man 2,
Right.
and Infinity War, he wasn't in Infinity War at all, right?
Right.
He was in Endgame. And he talked about how he was in there for what seemed like 5 hours, but it equivalated to
5 years.
5 years. Okay. So this is a discussion I was having with John, and love to have it here. How is it and why is it that Janet being in the quantum realm for 30 years should technically be 30 hours, but she has aged so much? And like Yesenia's saying here, she's like, I want quantum time rules. The ants spent the same time as the family in there, but progressed faster. It seems. Yeah. So like, I know that at one point in the movie, Janet was kind of explaining to Hope and Hank that time moves differently in the quantum realm. There's really no set of rules. There's really, like, it just exists. It kind of does whatever.
Right.
But because Scott had said one thing in Endgame about 5 years equaling 5 hours, by that theory and logic, Janet shouldn't have aged as much as she has.
No, it would have been a day, 30 hours. It wouldn't have been 30
A little
years.
over a
So,
day. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone out there has an explanation or something to offer, it would be greatly appreciated, because it's one of those things, as of right now, we don't even have an explanation from Marvel, because they haven't come out to say, like, well, this is how and why we
Yeah.
keep saying Janet was gone for 30 years. versus Scott, who, yes, he was gone for 5 years, but did he really age? Did he not age? Because that was also not clearly defined either.
Right. And then Paul Rudd doesn't age, so like
he is aged very gracefully. I will say that man
right.
is perfection in my opinion. Shout out to McDorks who's joined us here in the chat. Appreciate you being here. Sorry.
No, but Brittany, you bring up a good point. It's something we've always talked about since Endgame is, whenever you have timelines and time travel and all these things, they're really cool, right? They can give us amazing things. You can have multiple Spider-Man in a movie. That's awesome, right? Yeah. But it doesn't always make sense, right? So, and that kind of leads me to the end of this movie, because the way this movie ends, which I actually like the ending of this movie a lot because it was different. You have Scott Lang walking on the street, and he has this inner monologue in his head, and he's thinking about what happened in the quantum realm, and he's like, did we do the right thing? Did King said that if we whatever killed him, then it'd only make it worse. Did we do that? What he can't determine what the it's almost like if people who, like, if you leave your house, you're like, oh, did I lock the door? And like you're halfway to work, you're like, well, I guess I locked the door. Maybe it whatever. And I thought that was
best
a good
of luck.
I thought that was a good way to end it, because it definitely was it made you feel like, for those out there who are like, oh, they got rid of Kang easily. It's like, no, you didn't. Like, even the main characters like questioning, like, okay, what's the right thing? And then, honestly, and I saw this on a New Rockstars video. So shout out to New Rockstars, who obviously doesn't need our help because they're doing very, very well. But
help us out.
That exactly. We need their help big time. But they have a video about looking at that end scene and talking about how, do we know, is Scott Lang like caught in like a time loop? Because whenever he comes out, he's walking on the street, he passes by the same people over and over. And they're all looking at him weird, like strange. Like they're all like, and then also they pointed out, which I didn't notice either, but they're all wearing either green or purple, which is Kang's colors. They're all wearing.
Oh, I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah. Like the people. So it's like, that's Kang's colors. And
that would be appropriate to suggest that he's in a time loop, because again, much like how He Who Remains said to Sylvie at the end of Loki, you kill me, you unleash, so much more. And Kang kind of echoed that same sentiment to Scott. Like, this isn't over. And I think it's safe to say for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's why the ending was so weird, because I think he is stuck in a time loop of some sort.
I don't know. It's a scary idea. I mean, things did change ever so slightly, because when he went to that coffee shop where at the beginning of the movie, it was, oh no, you don't pay for anything here. Your money's not good here. You get whatever you want. And thank you, Spider-Man.
Right.
But when he comes back and he orders like a black coffee or whatever he orders, it's $12. And I'm like, okay, I get San Francisco is expensive. I've been there. California as a whole is expensive. But that did change.
Right.
That the man then realized who he was, and he's like, oh no, you pay. It's $12. And so that, to me, yes, that the theory of being in a kind of a time loop is
either he's in a time loop, or he might be in a different timeline.
Universe.
And also in the New Rockstars video, if you watch it, which they go by frame with this stuff. So like,
shout out
it's
to
exhaustive. Exhaustive work.
God.
But they also note that whenever he comes back, on the side of one of the buildings, there's the Ant-Man, the face, the logo or whatever, the helmet of Ant-Man. There's a heart around it, meaning like, love Ant-Man or whatever. Almost like he died, like in the same way like Tony Stark died. Other characters, when they died, they were remembered. Yeah. And so maybe he died. I don't know. To me, it's a way more interesting ending whenever you watch this video.
Oh, wow.
I like the ending anyway. I liked making it kind of weird because, again, this is why the people who are like, oh, they got rid of Kang so easily. It's like, no, you didn't get rid of Kang. Like,
God, no.
You've
wouldn't be that
unleashed
easy.
the dynasty,
Yeah.
And it's like, the thing about the MCU that I think I enjoy, and a lot of people who don't like these movies or have the fatigue, they don't like the fact that these movies are not standalone. They're not standalone movies. It's a connected universe and a continuing story. So
Yeah.
this is like reading like issue 3 or issue 1 of a 7-part comic book series, right? So
Yeah.
this is the first issue. This is the
Mhm.
first little battle. So in theory, Ant-Man and them, they won the battle against Kang, or did they? Because like,
Or did they?
the war is coming up and you've only made the enemy stronger. And in this case, that's Kang. So I really think that video, for the people who didn't like this movie, if you watch that video, you're like, oh, this makes this movie a lot more interesting. And I think that, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're just new rock stars, is like, maybe they're like going out of their way to make this better than it really is. But
it's okay.
It brings very interesting.
It brings an interesting theory, and I think it brings that opportunity to really analyze the movie a little bit more and dissect it.
Right.
You, like me, we don't watch a movie and then just accept what we're given.
Right.
Or shows, for that matter. If you want like real talk, go watch our season 8 of Game of Thrones reviews, because we had some thoughts. Right?
A lot of thoughts. Yeah.
A lot of thoughts. So yeah, we don't sit here and accept like what we're given. We want to like dissect and analyze and make sure like things are making sense, because to carry this sort of legacy that is the MCU, and we've lost a lot of these like big Avengers, Captain America, the original Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, so on and so forth. And we're bringing in a new age of Avengers, right? Like, you have to build their stories. You have to like make it make sense, right? And like what you're saying with this new multiverse saga is that it's all interconnected. It has to be interconnected. So shows, movies, whatever specials that Marvel may have in store for us, it's all going to make sense. Like you can't like miss something.
Well, and they also have the ability to retcon, where they can make things make sense later on, and they can make things better. I mean, think about how Endgame, like Thor: Dark World, is not one of my favorite MCU movies. It's toward the bottom of my rankings, right? My personal rankings, and it's also toward the bottom of our rankings. So go check out our rankings of the first 30 MCU films, because that was a fun one for us to do. But retroactively, Endgame makes Dark World better in my eyes. It's one of the movies that they go back to.
Yep.
Thor sees his mom. Like that was done. That was really well done, how they made that movie better than it was, right? And a lot of these things, because it's one big story. Like, this is just one chapter in this giant book that is the MCU. So
Fast and Furious, I don't think you have it in you to make Fast X retcon, just saying.
Oh no, they're constantly retconning though. Like
fair.
even Jason Momoa being the villain in the trailer, he's the son of the guy that they robbed.
In
Brazil. And he's like in the room as the giant safe is being pulled away, and it's like he's like right there. Like,
my God,
I mean,
we're not digressing. We're not here talking about that today. We'll talk about it when it comes out.
They retcon everything,
That's
and
fair.
I love it. I'm a member of the Fast family, so I can't wait for Fast 10.
Jesus.
May can't come fast enough, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's also your birthday month, so
it is. It's also when we get Guardians. It's
gonna be over. Yes. So excited.
For various reasons.
Yeah.
But one of the last things I wanted to point about this movie was the probability storm scene, where we get we get all the different versions of Ant-Man, all the possible
incredible
outcomes of him, and then of course the one version of him that's the Baskin Robbins guy. He's working at Baskin Robbins.
Can I tell you a quick tidbit about that? I don't know if you've seen it, but like the idea that Baskin Robbins, of course, has been featured in Ant-Man prior to this movie. Baskin Robbins was known for a time to have 31 flavors. And this is the 31st movie in the MCU, y'all. What the hell? That was genius.
That is genius.
Genius.
There is no way that whenever Ant-Man was like the 12th movie of the MCU, that they knew like, okay, the third movie is going to be the 31st. Because I mean, Baskin Robbins was in the first one, right? So Wow, that's really cool. Something else I liked about this movie is they
Bloody
continue to
genius.
reference Captain America. All 3 movies have a
Yes,
reference
they
to
do.
Captain America. So
Yes, they do.
that was
Hey,
cool.
listen, Cap is amazing, y'all. He's
Yeah.
my favorite. He's my
Yeah.
favorite.
Yeah. He's my favorite too. So
Mhm.
that was very cool. Let's see, as we're wrapping up here, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, Brittany?
Just going back to the probability cloud. Cloud? Was
Storm.
it called? Storm. Sorry.
Yeah.
Same idea. The storm. That was a really cool, just overall scene because obviously Paul Rudd had to play multiple versions of himself, Evangeline Lilly. Same kind of situation, but kind of going back to the roots of being Ant-Man because you didn't really see a whole lot of interaction of Ant-Man with ants, even though they were also in the quantum realm. So to have Ant-Man serve as like ants and build upon each other to get him to the top, to get the quantum spinny thingy. I don't know what that device was called. That was a really great callback to just kind of the root of the Ant-Man character. And I don't know. I think that was visually done spectacularly. It was really cool.
And when they're trying to build him up, like they're trying to, they're basically ants who are trying to like get him up there to that.
Exactly.
There's a part where they fall and it's like
Mhm.
all you see are the helmets. And that reminded me of a scene from Man of Steel where like Superman's like in this, it's one of these like dream scenes where there's all these like, he's on Krypton. There's all these like skulls.
Yeah.
The reason why I mention that is because in June, Man of Steel it'll be the 10-year anniversary of Man of Steel. And we are going to review it. The Watchers. It'll probably just be me and you, Brittany, but we're going to review it.
Oh God.
To honor the legacy of Henry Cavill as Superman.
Am I in a multiverse right now? Please tell me like you're kidding.
You're in a time loop. So
Jesus, this sucks.
Yeah.
Dormammu.
Unfortunately, 5 years
ago. Come to bargain.
Yeah, 5 years ago, you decided to like start a podcast with me. So this is your punishment. So anyway, no, but that was a very cool scene it was better in this movie than it was Man of Steel. No surprise if you know my thoughts on Man of Steel. But if you don't, we're going to review it in a few months. So that's a treat coming down the road. But no, the probability storm was really cool. That was a big part of the trailer because as you see, like the various Ant-Mans like coming apart, like you have a giant Ant-Man and yeah, I don't know. It was cool.
Yeah, no, I think that was a really cool scene and that all the CGI, special effects, all that goes into it made a very entertaining scene overall. And I got Game of like Battle of the Bastards vibes when Jon Snow is being like trampled over. Like I couldn't breathe for a little while. So woo, glad that's over.
Yep, very cool. So that is our review of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Speaking of Fast and Furious, I don't know if there's cars outside just flying by. They're filming part 2 outside my apartment right now, I believe. So if you heard that noise, that was on my end.
Go join the family, Justin.
Exactly. So what's next for the MCU? I'll let you know. So as I mentioned a little bit ago, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the next film. It comes out on May 5th. And then they moved the Marvels. The Marvels, which will also be in 2023, was going to be in July. Now it's going to be November 10th. So they pushed it back 4 months, which that's a good idea. I think like
basically get a holiday movie.
Yeah. And especially when you have, when people's complaint is, oh, there's so much Marvel. There's so much Marvel.
Yeah.
And now like, what's going to be funny is the same people are complaining. There's not like the same people who are complaining
too much Marvel.
Enough. Right. Like remember during the pandemic, we had no Marvel. We had no nothing. Right. And then we got
a lot.
Right. We got a lot.
Yeah. We got
probably too much, but
maybe a little bit.
I think they're going to do the same thing that DC's planning on doing with James Gunn, where he said they were going to do 2 movies and 2 shows a year. It sounds like Marvel might end up sort of doing that. They're doing 3 movies this year. Okay. Again, the Marvels is moved out to November. And then the 2 shows that for sure that are coming out on Disney Plus are Secret Invasion, which I think is going to be maybe April or maybe, I'm not sure. They said it's spring of 2023. So I assume that's like April or so. And then Loki season 2, which of course is teed up in the post-credit scene. We're getting that probably in the fall. But then there's shows like Echo, Ironheart, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, which we're going to be 2023. Yeah. So I think those other ones were pushed also. So
yeah, I think so too.
So yeah. So anyway, so now you know what we think about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. We want to know what you think. And Brittany, how can people let us know what they think about the movie?
Well, once again, we want to give a shout out to those who joined us today. Yesenia here in the chat, Nick and Claire from Walking with the Woods over in the UK, Mel, Geeking Out Melly Mel, and Christian from McDorks. Appreciate y'all stopping by, sharing your thoughts about Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantamania. And we invite everyone else who's listening and watching the replay to join us for future live chats and have those discussions with us. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, turn on your notifications. That way, you know, the next time we are going to do a live stream. We got another one coming out this week, Friday, for Netflix U. It's very exciting. But also don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Search at Watchers Basement. Use that same hashtag Watchers Basement to help grow our audience. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. We've already manifested it. Let's get it. Let's get it done by the end of the year, y'all. And lastly, our audio podcasts are available to you on Apple, Google, and Spotify. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating.
Thank you, Brittany. Appreciate it. And once again, thanks everyone for watching. We appreciate that very much. So for Brittany, this is Justin saying, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a good evening. Goodbye.